Welcome to. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting of the year 2022-2023 for the Women's Canadian Club of Hamilton on this day, Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. I am Louise Noel Ambrose, President of the Women's Canadian Club of Hamilton. We thank you for joining us today. Special acknowledgement to our first-time guests and returning friends of WCCH. We recognize and acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and the Haudenosaunee nations and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampong Agreement. Might we not only learn about the Indigenous people of Canada, but from them. The WCCH is striving to continue to be a group of people concerned about issues that affects women, education, and advocating for those issues in our community. We are here to foster throughout the Greater Hamilton area an interest in all matters of public concern, which in regards to strengthen Canadian unity and identity, encourage the education and promotion of Canadian history and heritage, foster an appreciation of Canadian culture and traditions to new Canadians. Our monthly virtual meetings take place on the third Wednesday of each month with featured speakers on a variety of social issues. Today, we welcome Judge Rochelle Ivri, one of 9 citizenship judges in Canada, as our guest speaker. In addition to her duties as a judge, she's a professor at McGill School of Business at Mohawk College, as well as Queen's University. She is co-author of a textbook and the mother of 4. She is passionate about human rights, the Charter, and encouraging active citizenship and civic engagement, which has earned her several awards, namely Women Who Rock, 100 Accomplished Black Canadian, and 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women. We welcome you today, Judge. Thank you for your time. The floor is now yours.
Thank you so much, Louise. I sincerely appreciate that introduction. And it is so wonderful to see some familiar faces that I haven't seen in a few years. So beautiful to see you. Thank you so much for having me. I am joining you today from Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario, which is a traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Haudenosaunee Nations. Thank you for your acknowledgement of the many and vital contributions of Indigenous peoples to our nation. They continue to hold extremely important roles in our development and our future. And so I really do thank you for that acknowledgement as well. So I've created a small presentation for you, and then I thought after the presentation that I could open the floor to questions, which I'm sure many of you have. And so just give me one moment. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully I have some screen sharing capabilities. And let me just get to the beginning. Can everyone see that? A little thumbs up? Great. Wonderful. So today I wanted to talk to you about what citizenship really means. An organization like the Canadian Club of Women of Hamilton knows exactly the answer to this question because of the work that you do. I have seen it firsthand for myself, and I've seen the impact of your organization, not just on new citizens, but on Canadians as a whole. And so firstly, before I start anything, I want to thank you for the work that the Canadian Club of Women of Hamilton does and continues to do. And I'm looking forward to our continued collaboration. We'll talk about that a little bit later, what that might look like given our new landscape. So A little bit about me, as Louise says, I am a mom and a wife, a mom of 4. My eldest is going to be 23 this year, and my youngest is 9. So we have a very busy house full of soccer and wrestling and lots of banter and chatter and questions. And so in addition to all of the many roles that I hold, being a wife and mom is, for me personally, the most rewarding and the most important for me. In 2018, I was appointed as one of 10 at the time. I'm now one of 9 citizenship judges in Canada, which is a great privilege. And I think I approach my role with extreme gratitude each and every day, because I know the importance that that role holds, not just for new citizens that I encounter, but for those that share my cultural community, those that share similar identities to me, both being wives and moms and professors and whatever that might mean. And so it's a very special role that I hold dear. Additionally, I am a professor at Mohawk College in the paralegal program, and I also teach at Queen's Law School in the citizenship program. So at times, life can be very busy, but very rewarding. I have co-authored a textbook that is currently used in law clerk and paralegal programs across the province, which I'm very proud of. I sit on various boards, both in Hamilton and actually nationwide and in the Niagara region. I mentor not just people on a personal level, but I'm also the co-founder of a mentorship program that is currently running in both the Catholic and the public school boards here in the Niagara region. I see myself as a very staunch advocate, and as Louise has indicated, I'm also an awardee, having received numerous awards, including most recently the 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women for 2022. I was actually just named also as one of the top Black Canadian women to watch for 2022. And last year, I'm very proud of the fact that I received the Law Society's Lincoln Alexander Award. I'm the first paralegal to ever receive that award. And in fact, it's an award that was designed for lawyers. And in the 20-year history of the award, I'm the first paralegal to have received it. My application was actually sent in for the Distinguished Paralegal Award. And upon seeing my application, they decided to change the rules, which is really special to me, because I do see part of my role as being a change maker and a trailblazer. And so I'm thankful that I've paved the way for paralegals across Ontario to also be open to receiving the Lincoln Alexander Award. And of course, Lincoln Alexander holds a very special place in my heart and in Hamiltonians and Canadians' hearts. So it's very special to me as well. So I wanted to just quickly talk about the citizenship program, and then we'll get into our current landscape a little bit. So as we know, Canada was first inhabited by First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We are a country of immigrants. 1 out of 5 Canadians were actually born outside of Canada. Canada has over 200 ethnic groups, and 85% of permanent residents become Canadian citizens. It's a very important thing that people feel that they want to be a part of Canada and Canadian society, not just by living here, but in a meaningful way by becoming citizens. And so over the last 10 years, over 1.5 million permanent residents have become Canadian citizens. Of course, Canada is this beautiful mosaic. You see this in our ceremonies each and every day. Various ethnic groups, religions, different languages, different hues of skin, various identities, both sexual and others. And it's Canada is truly a mosaic. We all play a role. We all come together to create this beautiful country that we all call home. So many people decide to become a Canadian citizen because they recognize that they belong to a free and safe country. All people are equal under the law, which is very important because we see in some countries that equality is not quite there. Having the right to vote We take a lot of what we have in Canada for granted. Many people either don't have the right to vote or don't have democratic elections in their countries. And so having the right to vote in a democratic election is very important. A Canadian passport is one of the top passports in the world. And of course, by becoming a Canadian, you have access to more jobs, mobility in jobs, what have you. You're free to live and work in any province or territory. And many people don't know that Canada is currently ranked the best country in the world for quality of life. And that is from the World Report and the US News. We are #1 ahead of countries like Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Switzerland, Finland, some of the heavy hitters that we all look to as very, countries that have excellent quality of life. But Canada overall ranks #1. And if you want more information about this, I can provide it. We rank very high on various levels, both opportunities for women, education, what have you. So if you'd like more information, just I'll put my contact information at the end and you can just send me a message and I can send that to you. But we're very blessed. I had a ceremony one year with Rob Nicholson. He used to be the MP for the area that I live in. And one thing that he said that always struck me was that when we arrive in Canada, whether being born here or arriving on our shores, that we have truly hit the jackpot. And it really is true. We are very blessed to even have the audacity to do some of the things that we do here in Canada. And so I'm always very thankful for that. So some of the responsibilities that you hold as Canadians is to obey the law, take care of your family and children, volunteer, which I know that this organization knows very much about, and helping others, serve on a jury when asked, vote, and protect the environment. So in order to become a citizen, you have to be a permanent resident in Canada for 3 out of the 5 years before applying. You have to file your income taxes if you're required to do so for 3 out of those 5 years. You can't have a criminal record. You have to speak and understand English or French, are 2 major official languages, and also complete the application form. Additionally, you also have to pay a fee. Adults pay $630 and children pay $100. So you could imagine for some families, I see Kay is saying, what? Absolutely. It can be very costly for many families. So to make the choice to become a citizen is not just, it's not just a choice about becoming part of the country, but it's also an economic choice as well. There is a knowledge test that must be passed, and people use the Citizenship Study Guide in order to prepare themselves for the Citizenship Knowledge Test. You must receive a 15 out of 20. Any number of questions can be, out of hundreds and hundreds of questions, can be proffered to you, and you need to receive 15 out of 20. And then, of course, my most favorite part is you need to take the oath of citizenship at a citizenship ceremony. And so that is the complete process, but it is a lengthy process. Currently, it takes anywhere from 18 months to 2 years to get through that process from the time of application to actually getting in front of me as a judge to receive your citizenship. So with the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, we have actually changed our oath of citizenship, and we started using it actually as soon as the proclamation was made that we had lost the Queen. And so our new oath now says that you swear or affirm that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty, King Charles III, King of Canada, his heirs and successors, and that I will faithfully observe the laws of Canada. And here's a recent change that was made along with, so King Charles is the most recent, but prior to that, June of last year was the very first time that these changes were implemented, including the Constitution, which recognizes and affirms the Aboriginal and treaty rights of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, and fulfill my duties as a Canadian citizen. And that portion of the oath was in keeping with the terms of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations to include Indigenous peoples in the oath of citizenship. And it is a wonderful symbolic gesture of people being aware of not just the contributions of First Nations, but that we always need to be mindful, we always need to honor those that paved the way for us to be able to live in this country. And so this is our new oath. So that is something that might be new to you. For those who have been coming to ceremonies before, it has changed in its entirety during the pandemic by adding First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples and the Aboriginal and treaty right recognition. And we also, with the change to the monarchy now, swear allegiance to King Charles III, King of Canada. So our national anthem has remained the same. This is a photo of a ceremony that I did on Canada Day in Niagara Falls. I always make it a point when everyone is now conferred with citizenship and I welcome them into the Canadian family that I have them wave their flags until their arms hurt and cheer as loud as they can in order to really just hit home that they have now started a new beginning as Canadian citizens. So who are the judges and what do we do? So first and foremost, let me just change this slide. We have 9 citizenship judges across Canada. This is an old photo because we haven't been able to come together to take a new one. So this has our 10 judges. Judge Villeneuve is no longer with us. He has retired and has moved on to other roles. But there's 1 judge in BC, 1 in Manitoba, 2 in Quebec, 1 in the Maritimes, and 4 in Ontario, because by far, Ontario is the busiest province. 2 judges are responsible for Scarborough. 1 judge, Judge Wong, is responsible for Mississauga, and little old me takes care of Hamilton, Niagara, Windsor, London, and Kitchener. It's called GOA, the Greater Ontario Area, and I proudly serve each and every day all of those areas of our province. Now, in a COVID landscape, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit, I also assist with ceremonies in Mississauga, Scarborough, Calgary, Alberta, the Maritimes, Vancouver. That's the beauty of these online ceremonies, because we are able to connect with citizens across our country. So our roles have 3 components. The first are the ceremonies. In Ontario, we have offices, as I said, in Hamilton, Niagara, Mississauga, Kitchener, London, Windsor, and Scarborough. We also hold hearings. Currently, we are holding them virtually, but we are kind of returning in person. I'll talk a little bit about that shortly. But they are held both in person and virtually. And we also have a lot of decision writing that's part of our role. And my favorite component, other than ceremonies, is the community outreach part, where I get to meet with community organizations and do presentations on citizenship and active citizenship to community organizations. That includes schools, that includes Rotary clubs, that includes yourselves. I get to do so many things across this province, and I'm so thankful. So here's a number that might be staggering for you, but as I was appointed in June of 2018, so I have been a judge for a little over 4 years. And in those 4 years, I have sworn in over 60,000 new Canadian citizens. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of, in fact, at the gala for the 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women this weekend, I had a citizen approach me. I had sworn her in January of 2020, and she wanted to get an updated picture of us now that we've got a little bit of COVID pounds on us. And so we took a lovely photo together. But that is the beauty of being able to swear in and touch the lives of so many people. I'm at soccer games, I am at the grocery store, and I encounter those that I've conferred citizenship on, and it's such a beautiful thing. So that literally, though, that number is a drop in the hat compared to the amount of new citizens that we are swearing in. From January to June of this year alone, so in those 6 months, we swore in over 180,000 new Canadian citizens. Those numbers continue to climb. We continue to get through the backlog of those who had applied during the pandemic and when we were still figuring things out. And so I'm proud of the numbers of people that I've been able to touch, but my colleagues and I are working very hard to make sure that we confer citizenship on as many new citizens as we can. So I just wanted to quickly share my experiences. I said 3 years, it should say 4. My apologies for that. So this is a picture from my very first ceremony. You can see that huge smile on my face. I was so excited. It was Canada Day, July 1st of 2018, my very first ceremony. It was such a beautiful ceremony at a golf club just down the street from my home. And it was an emotional and beautiful experience. So we do ceremonies all over, not just in offices. This is a ceremony that was hosted by the Rotary Club of St. Catharines. We had it in the beautiful Rotary Park that's in St. Catharines, and it was a really beautiful experience as well. We had a Pied Piper, and we had also various dignitaries there with us. Some of the outreach that I do includes doing work with the Girl Guides. They actually have a citizenship patch that they need to achieve. And so this was a time that we spent together. We did a reaffirmation ceremony, and we talked a lot about citizenship and how our government works. And this is actually another ceremony that was hosted by Girl Guides in Kitchener. So that was, they ran the whole thing. I was so proud of them. And at that ceremony, we also had a Mountie, which is a beautiful thing to see. In other provinces, having a Mountie, so in the Maritimes, Manitoba, they always have a Mountie. Ontario's a little bit busy, and so we're really lucky when we do have a Mountie and or even police services personnel. The very first picture I showed you from my very first ceremony, the gentleman on the left was actually the chief of police for the Niagara region. So and then this is a picture from Take Your Kids to Work Day. So I always make it a point to be able to connect with those grade 9s and talk to them about their futures and what they might have on the horizon. That's a really important thing to me, that mentorship piece, and to be able to connect with young people. It's something that I hold dear, not just by being a mom, but I'm also an educator, and I feel very, very blessed to be able to do that. Just quickly, here's a picture from a ceremony with Kitchener. This is Laura May Lindo to your left, who is the chair of the NDP Black Caucus, and she is a member of Provincial Parliament for Kitchener Centre. She was lovely to award me with a Leading Women, Leading Girls, Building Communities Award last year, which was really special. This was a beautiful ceremony in Port Hope. Look at this marching band. Like, I was just blown away. So beautiful. I'm so happy that my husband was able to capture this photo, but I really have the ability to just be able to connect with so many people and to be able to see amazing things like this on my daily experiences. Indigenous representation is very, very important to us. And we are actually talking more about inclusion of Indigenous representation, not just in our special ceremonies, but in our everyday today's ceremony. So we're hoping that will come to fruition, because I think that's very important. And this, again, this is a Sioux Chi organization. Much like yourselves, they host events. I now realize that the next time that we see each other at a ceremony that we need to take a photo so that I can include your photo in my presentation. But hosting is a very important role. We'll talk about that, because I got the okay that that can begin again as we are moving back to some in-person ceremonies. Quickly, the impact of COVID-19. So for all of us, our world completely changed. This is what our ceremonies looked like by March 16th of 2020. They were empty. Across Canada, we did not have any ceremonies. But as Maya Angelou says, if you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. And so we were able to mobilize, we were able to do something we've never done before, and that was have virtual ceremonies. And they have been wonderful to be able to still be able to provide people with their citizenship, despite the fact that we are not quite in person yet. So just a quick little overview, some more numbers. I have personally done over 12 100 ceremonies since I was appointed in 2018. But just since July of last year, I've sworn in over 38,000 new Canadians. We are actively, I do at least 40 to 60 ceremonies a month. I am blessed to be able to do them from the comfort of my home, but but we're working very hard. And just in 2022 alone, I've already sworn in over 29,000 new Canadians. So you can see just what we are really trying to do in order to ensure that people still obtain their citizenship. These are some photos from when we were first doing ceremonies. We were doing them actually one-on-one. So when you see these photos, individual photos, you'll see that there's one family. We were doing them one family at a time when we first got started. And we progressively got to a few more in the ceremonies. This was a special ceremony that was done for the 25th anniversary of Black History Month in Canada. There is the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine, right above the minister at the time. And we were able to honor her for her contributions. Really, Black History Month is recognized in Canada because of Jean Augustine and her tireless work, and so we're really thankful for that. And now we have way more people. You might recognize Mayor Fred Eisenberger there, some individuals from HIPSI. We are doing now anywhere from 100 to 200 new citizens at a time for each ceremony. And so it can get a little noisy, but it's a very beautiful experience. So I wanted to just finalize my talk talking about just how interconnected we really are and what is community, because I find that when we talk about citizenship ceremonies, we tend to kind of think that people who are becoming citizens are recent immigrants. And quite frankly, I have many in my ceremonies that have been in Canada for longer than I've been alive. And so we are all interconnected. We all share this mosaic that we call Canada. And, you know, I like this quote that says, community is much more than belonging to something. It's about doing something together that makes belonging matter. And the work that you do is a component of that, to make belonging matter, to make people feel like they belong in communities so that they can actualize their potential and have the audacity to dream. Now, you know, we all have that responsibility to make people feel welcome. I'm thankful for the work that your organization does to make people feel welcome directly at their ceremonies and outside of ceremonies. We're all responsible for advocating for each other, especially those who are marginalized and disenfranchised. You know, community, as I said, is about doing something together that makes belonging matter. So when we realize our interconnectedness, community really begins to take shape. I wanted to just very quickly, I know that I'm pressed for time, but I wanted to tell you the story of this woman. I'll just say her first name is Wanda. And this is a beautiful story, a sad story, but ultimately Phoenix rising out of the ashes, right? Wanda was forced to flee her country when her husband was murdered right before her eyes. And she fled her country of origin. And while she was fleeing, she had actually been sexually assaulted by soldiers. That little boy, that the hand that she's holding is actually a little boy that was conceived as a result of that assault. That being said, she fled. She got her children to safety in a country nearby. These are all of her children, with the exception of the young girl that's beside me. She is one of the host families that helped to sponsor her family to come to Canada. And you know, the day of this ceremony, she had actually met Justin Trudeau just that morning, who gave her a very big hug and welcomed her into the Canadian family. And then she came to my ceremony, and when she was conferred with citizenship, she literally collapsed and cried on my shoulder because of what it meant. And I get teary-eyed just thinking about it. For me, Wanda really exemplifies why we're here and why we do what we do. And despite her circumstances, despite her story, that beautiful smile on her face and those of her family is really what this is all about. It's ensuring that people have safety, security, the audacity to dream, and the ability to thrive. She now lives in a small town, so I guess Niagara is, there's a bunch of little small towns, but she lives in a small town that is close to where her children go to a Christian private school. And she's doing so, so well. And so I wanted to share her story with you. In addition to the Haddad family, you might have seen, there's a movie about the Haddad family, because they started a very beautiful, I don't know if you've ever had their chocolate, it's called Peace by Chocolate. It's the best chocolate. But they were chocolatiers in Damascus, Syria, and they were forced to flee in 2012, and they came to Canada as refugees in 2016. And they have now developed this thriving chocolate company. Their motto is "One piece won't hurt." And Peace by Chocolate is truly an example. Their family is truly an example of, being able to come to a country where you can then just kind of shed some of that trauma, shed some of that pain, and be able to thrive when community comes together to assist. So if you haven't seen their movie, look it up. There is a movie about this family that came out, I believe, last year. And so I wanted to just end my presentation by thanking you for having me come here today. It's such a wonderful opportunity to be able to connect and to be able to, share a little bit about what we are doing and what we have been doing and what we continue to do. So thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Christine, are you still there?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Can you please give a thank you to our guests before we open up for questions, please?
Yes, indeed. It is my great pleasure to again hear her voice. We met, of course, in the kitchen back at 50 Bay Street one stormy day 3 years ago. And I was hosting with the Women's Canadian Club at a ceremony that day. But it's so wonderful to hear you and to have explained as well the values of Canadian citizenship. And, I think our newspaper should be printing the revised Canadian citizenship oath because most people, other than those of us who have been so blessed hearing the revisal today, I think the other Canadians and readers of the papers and of using our media should know what the revised edition is. So thank you very much, Judge. We are so blessed to have you. Thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you at other ceremonies and hope that the Women's Canadian Club will be in a position to volunteer again to thank all of our new citizens for becoming new citizens after the ceremonies. Thank you, Judge. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank
you. So just to touch on that before I forget, I did in our last judges meeting ask about hosting duties, and I spoke with the current manager of the Hamilton Niagara offices, and they would welcome you with welcome arms, with big arms of welcome to come back to host. Now, here's the issue. We are still working out our schedule in terms of what that will look like. So it's not a weekly event anymore, given the COVID experience. They haven't quite figured out if it's going to be monthly or if it's going to be bi-weekly, but they definitely want for you to be a part of it. And so I will obtain the contact info for who you should be reaching out to facilitate that. I expect that it'll be sometime in October, possibly November, before we get started. But I mentioned you, and it was definitely something that they would like to see happen.
Thank you very much for
Thank you,
advocating on our behalf.
Absolutely.
And we open for questions that you have. Oh, John, are you saying something?
I think Kay.
Go ahead, Kay.
I just wanted to say that my facial expression obviously was one of shock when I heard the amount of money required now to become a Canadian citizen. For your information, Judge, I'm a $10 Canadian. I became a Canadian citizen in the mid-1970s. And in these days, being a British subject, it was very easy to become a Canadian citizen. And it only cost me $10.
Right. Yeah. It's a big difference, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Huge difference. I know my mother became a citizen in 1967 or 68. And so she doesn't even remember. She's like, I don't know. I went to the office. They asked me if I want my citizenship. I said, sure.
I wasn't going to say that, but I went down, built down, I can't remember the name of the building on Main Street in Hamilton, a government building, and I went simply to ask how I would go about becoming a Canadian citizen. And I was ushered into a little office. A fellow came and he had a form and he asked me questions and I gave answers and he wrote them down. And then he said to me, would you like to read that? And I said, yes, it's fine. Meanwhile, he's rummaging in the desk and pulling out a Bible, which I wasn't aware of. And then he said, would you please stand up? So I stood up. I got the book. And he said, in the blank, fill your name, your full name. So all I remember saying was, I, Kathleen Allen Lumsden, do solemnly swear allegiance to Canada, to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors. And then the last sentence that you read to us, Judge, was the same.
And fulfill my duties as a Canadian citizen.
That's right, yes. Yeah, I remember that.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you sharing that with me.
That was my experience. But I've never, ever, ever, of course, regretted just even coming to Canada, because what I said to my auntie that I lived with and other friends and family, that I was going to go to Canada on a 2-year working holiday. And that was in 1968.
And you've been here ever since.
Yes, and I've been retired for 23 years. Yes, I enjoyed a full career in teaching school, and now yesterday, for the first time in 2.5 years, I was back at the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board archives.
Wow.
Terrific.
We're hoping to get restarted again. Some of us were masked and others were not, but yours truly was certainly masked. But that's my Canadian story.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Rochelle, my apologies for coming in late. I have 4 meetings on a 3rd Wednesday, but you are very important. And I have to, Lee and the other ladies know that I volunteer quite a bit. My most favorite volunteering is at a citizenship court. Is there nothing else to make you proud to be a Canadian? I admire your job, but look at the people. Some of them are here by themselves.
Yes.
They have no one, and yet their one big thing is to become a Canadian. Absolutely. It kind of reflects, isn't that true, Lee?
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
I mean, it's reminding me as a Canadian born how important your job is and how important it is for them. And I have to tell you, well done, because you sometimes, when you look at the stories they tell, And I'm forever taking a picture or two, right, Bea?
Yes.
And Louise, just
Yes.
to be able to take their picture in front of the Canadian flag and in front of you, very, very important. I have to tell you, ladies, this is my favorite thing to do. It makes me, I'm a Canadian, and that reminds me why. So thank you for your job, and you must see it all the time, don't you, with them? They're so happy.
Absolutely. Tears of joy doesn't quite explain it, because it's like a cathartic release. You know, like I said, when I was telling Wanda's story, when I said she literally collapsed on my shoulder, you know, like it was just, she sobbed. And I held her, and it's such a beautiful thing to be able to do that. I don't know what we'll do post-COVID, but prior to COVID, I was able to hold her and just let her cry on my shoulder. New Citizens could wait. She needed a moment. And, you know, I've had people say, you know, I finally feel like a human being. I finally feel like I belong. I've had people throw candy at me in joy. I've had such amazing, beautiful experiences, all a reflection of what it means. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it means a lot to them. I mean, that reminds all of us sitting here listening to why we're Canadian, and it kind of reminds us how lucky we are to be here. Instead of some of the other countries they've come from. They tell horrific stories.
Yeah.
And I usually try to bring maple syrup candy, which I'm most popular giving out the stuff. I'm only kidding. But just
we've heard about the candy.
But just to see their little children, and they're so proud. What joy you must bring to them. That's awesome.
It's really beautiful. I'm really thankful. Like I said in the beginning, that I take this role with gratitude, because I recognize that what I do matters beyond my wildest imaginations. You know, my very first citizenship ceremony was when I became a judge. I was born in Canada. My parents had come here in the late 60s. So all of my family came at that time. No one had a citizenship ceremony. No one knew what that meant. And I hadn't had opportunities to go. And so one of the things, I agree with you, Jan, I think everyone should go to a ceremony to really get a fulsome understanding of what this means and the importance that it holds. Yeah, absolutely.
So well done.
Thank you.
And I'll bring maple syrup candy next time I see you.
That sounds really good.
Any more questions? The judge has another ceremony to go momentarily.
Okay, can I just pop in and say one quick thing, Louise? I agree with Jan. I mean, going to those ceremonies it's just a wonderful experience, and I wish that everybody could go at one time and stand up and reaffirm their oath with the people who are coming in and sing the "O Canada," and that it's a very emotional experience. I was surprised at the change of the citizenship oath, and I've made a note to myself here, because I do administer our Facebook page, that I'm going to post that oath on our Facebook page so that everybody is aware. Like, I knew, of course, there was the change to the monarch, to King Charles III, but that whole other part about the Indigenous people, I don't know whether anybody here had ever even heard it before. So that's news, and I'm going to put that up on our Facebook page to keep everybody current. The other one little thing I wanted to mention was right at the start of your talk, when you spoke about Canada being a mosaic, and I wrote that down because I thought, isn't that just so different from people who live not too far from here, but on the other side of a certain international border, who claim themselves to be a melting pot. And I thought, what a difference in terminology, where to think of a melting pot means you all go in and you all melt and become the same.
You lose
But
yourself.
here in Canada, we're celebrating that it's a mosaic, and everybody is different and everybody's themselves, and yet we all make one big picture. And I just thought that was just such a striking difference in terminology, but so absolutely perfect as to what we are compared to what they are. So I thank you for bringing that to our attention as well.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. Absolutely.
Agreed.
Hi, Anne.
Hello. Well, thank you for your lovely talk. And I have a question regarding voting.
Sure.
In the oath, it expresses that one of the responsibilities of a Canadian is to vote.
Mhm.
So my sort of thought is there any follow-up done? How do you know that people are fulfilling that oath when they take it? I did mine in the late 50s, but I just wondered, is there any follow-up to that? Or does it just, what is it? How does it work?
Sure, that's a really good question. So we don't follow up in terms of how many people are fulfilling all of the responsibilities of the oath that they took. However, we can tell, because there's nominal rolls and what have you, we can tell when people, like Statistics Canada can tell, how many people are voting and whether or not the people that we have now kind of added to the population of people that can vote and the impact that that has. I can tell you that for many people, voting is fundamentally important. Whether in their country of origin, they're unable to exercise that right. And so it's a right based on their gender equality, based on living in a democracy. So it's very important. And also for those who have been in Canada for a very long time, that's sometimes why they are now motivated to get their citizenship, because they now recognize that they would like to vote. And so just based on what I see anecdotally, I think a good number of our new citizens exercise their right to vote, because that is one of the fundamental reasons that brings them to a ceremony in the first place.
It would be super if we could somehow motivate our own native Canadians, so to speak, to vote. When you get voting coming in at 38 and 40%, as I think Jan said, I don't think we really appreciate what we have.
Absolutely.
And it takes, when we're working with refugees, which is what Susan and I are been involved in, we realize that we don't realize what we have. Mm-hmm. So how do we motivate Canadians to vote?
So it's really interesting that you say that. And so for me as an educator, that is one thing that I talk a lot about with my students, because you're right. People who are Canadian born or have been enculturated as Canadians without a history of maybe having lack, don't understand the fundamental importance. And so some of the courses I teach are in human rights law and in administrative law. Those are my areas of specialization. So when I talk about the importance of municipalities, and when I talk about the importance of how the laws that our municipalities make impact our daily lives, then I see my students, the light bulbs go on. They go, oh, I didn't realize that voting for my mayor or for even my ward councillor is important. And then we then take that a step further and we talk about, the roles and responsibilities of our province and then the federal government. And then people start recognizing, oh, voting is actually really important because this is the influence that I can have. I think that we can do a better job as educators and just in Canada in general, to really have our general population understand the roles and responsibilities of the different level of government and understanding the impact that we have as voters in order to ensure that those who are at the table making decisions for us are actually those that we want making those decisions for us, and that their beliefs and their leanings kind of align with our own thoughts and feelings. But part of that is having an educated populace that can understand those concepts before we can then encourage them to vote. Yeah.
I'll add one other thing here, being as I'm very involved in advocacy. The Board of Education, they do not get the same profile as municipal candidates. But in this upcoming election for the trustees, I think it's very important that we each look very carefully in our various wards as to who is running. There have been some interesting things have come up that some of them have said. So we all have to do our homework on school board trustees, particularly as I understand that's an emphasis of the Women's Canadian Club.
And I would actually take that a step further. I currently sit on the Niagara Region Women's Advisory Committee. And I mean, the amount of work that we have done over the last 2 years to influence the way that our region and various municipal governments operate, you know, I made a motion to ensure that we take an intersectional gendered lens at all of policies, and that has now become part of the way that the region operates. And so I think that it's really important that even when we think about people who are sitting on our agencies, boards, and commissions, those who are sitting on those various committees also are advocating in ways that we think are meaningful, because they can drive the work and they can drive what we see our regional, even our education, our school boards, what have you, the way that they are focusing on things or the way that they do things. And so, you know, I'm one person and I was like, okay, how are we doing this? Why are we not? And so it was very important to see, because as we had, you know, the transportation, you know, I don't know, the head of transportation, and they're doing their transportation plan for the entire region. And we said, oh, have you taken a gendered lens at this? Have you thought about the impact of women being able to get to work, then school, then, right? Have you thought about strollers that can get through, you know, have you thought about these things? And they had not. There had been no one at the table who thought of these things. And so I think that we need to really understand the impact that even those who are sitting on our various agencies, boards, and commissions, and you're right, our school board trustees, because they will influence the way that we approach things and things that we hold dear and important. So thank you for bringing that up, Anne.
The other thing, Anne, my generation, which perhaps you might be a lot younger than I am, but my father fought in World War II, and he impressed upon us that he fought to give me, as a female, the right to vote. So, and certainly within my circle of relatives, etc., the right to vote is an expectation. So we always vote. And I agree with you. The one meeting I just left, you need to definitely, it was the trustees for education, extremely important to check out that sort of thing. But thank you, Rochelle. But I know most of you know I work with HCCI and Medina Wasugi, and we took from 2006 to 2019 a lot of the new immigrants, and then we tried to help them get settled. The right to vote was just astounding to them, and the fact that females were allowed to vote, which was just and a right to education. So I've certainly learned a lot from my volunteering, but I just, as you say, and I don't know how you motivate people to vote. I've tried, and certainly in my classes, we held those elections, you know, in high school, etc. So thank you for bringing that up. And Rochelle, thank you for your comments. It's very important, especially now with the trustee election that are happening here in Hamilton, and Lee would know a lot more about that than I would. So.
Well, I do have to go. I do thank you all for having me today. I really enjoyed our conversation and being able to see some familiar faces and meet some new faces. I really look forward to hopefully seeing you in the very near future at citizenship ceremonies at the Hamilton office. I am about to, just give me a sec, I'm putting my email address into the chat. And I don't know how many of you are on Instagram or Twitter or what have you, but if you, I will send, what I'll do is I will send the contact information to Louise for the person in citizenship to speak with, to connect. And then I'll also just send all of my various handles on various platforms, and feel free to connect with me there. Okay.
Thank you.
That's terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is my pleasure. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon, and hopefully I'll see you all soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Thank you all.